The Roman Empire. How did Rome get its name? Rome is the capital city of Italy. Built started in 7053 BC, and the Romans developed a story to explain how Rome was built. They believed that twin boys Romulus and Remus were taken for their mother and left by the river Tiber to strive. It is thought that mother wolf found babies and looked after them until they were, they were old enough to take care of themselves. The myth goes to say that years later, Mars, the Rome god of war, told the boys to build a city on the spot where they have been found. The two boys built this city, but they ended up fighting with each other. Romulus won the battle and the city became known as Rome. Today, historians and archaeologists believe, however, that people started living in Rome long before the time of Romulus and Remus, but many people still believe in their legend. How ruled Rome? At the first, at the first kings ruled Rome. The first king they have in the 50th century BC was called Tarquin the Proud. Tarquin abolished many rings, many rights people hate him. He was overthrown because he was the worst king in Rome history. Rome then became a republic for the next 400 years. That is to say that most important people in Rome decide what was good for the empire. The republic was ruled by a Senate, and people call it senators, were excellent to do different jobs in the sentences. However, not everyone was allowed to vote in those elections. Women and slaves were not allowed to vote, and neither were poor people. The Romans people who were not slaves were called Sintas. In the first 1st century BC, the generals who controlled the center. See the map of the other side of this paper, and at the first Rome was ruled by generals, but this caused problems. The generals were always fighting the empire. Eventually, eventually, eventually the generals were reelected by just one man. The emperor, Roman Empire, was the man who ruled over the empire. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kevin Valverde and I am going to talk about how did people in Rome. To begin with, we must keep in mind the social division. Science, if we want to explain the way of life of these people, we have to think that each social stratum, each one lived in a different way. There were slaves and free citizens as the first division. The slaves had reached this situation either by birth or by having committed a crime within the category, that is, a bad person. They were free men. There were several free types. There were slaves who had achieved their freedom, but they still did not have all rights of free citizens. When we talk about plebeians were people who had settled in Rome since its foundation and who had civil rights. When we talk about patricians, they were descendants of the early Roman senators, form a privileged social class. We can talk about the whites, knights who used to be merchant archers, who had served in the army or in the administration. The clients were citizens who were under the protection of more powerful orders and they already changed. There was still help. There are also great families or people who are grouped to come of some ancestry illustrates the Roman family was a rich, controlled structure. The family of a Roman was the rich structure controlled by the paterfamilias. At his death, the married firstborn male should happen to make the place of the saints every day. They are in charge of the paterfamilias. The members of the family were the legitimate wife, throat, marry human married to the father's powers over his children is called even power. I did decide on life or death as it happened when deformed. Child was born according to the laws of 12 tables. That is so important in this presentation. The freedmen keep the ties of fidelity with the original boxes and in the so-called patronages. They so skipped the bond with their masters to thwart the Dominican protest. Among the attributions of the paterfamilias was that of arranging the marriage of their children. Causing your head of the family, the marriage was a prepaid act in which no civil or religious authority intervened, which was valid in Roman society. First, the marriage promise was made when the children had turned 7 years later. The marriage ceremony was performed according to the audio authority exercised by the paterfamilia. The marriage was agreed to have children and not out of love, mainly to have a child of the other male since it was obliged. Mainly to have legitimate male children since it was the obligation of the paterfamilias to ensure the survival of the family when the spouse could not resort to adoption at the age of 6 years, began school. Before this day, were tutored by their parents and dedicate their time was the school was run economically by the family and therefore education system that was imposed from the 3rd century BC was called Ludus Literatur, based on the Greek model. I am taught to writing to read, calculation and already basically is the same system, but we have more specific topic. But yeah, this was carried out with a programmatic tutor and it was taught to read correctly and with good intonation. The text in the edition was intended only for men. Some women were completing primary studies, a small number of women with secondary or higher studies.
The Roman expansion. So, after Romulus murdered his brother Remus, he decided that he wanted to expand the city. Romulus ordered the Sabines to capture their women. This caused war and assimilation. Assimilation was the first conquest of Rome. It triggered Roman expansion along the Italian peninsula, where they defeated the Strogans, the Samnites, and many other tribes. To make the transition easy for these groups, Romans started doing it acculturation by taking some of the local beliefs as their own or combine them with their own ideas. During the Punic Wars, Rome expanded into Spain, Then North Africa. They destroyed Carthage entirely. Then Greece, Balkans, Turkey, France, the Middle East, Egypt, Morocco, Germany, and finally Britain in 43 AD. Rome was doing it great by keeping the focus away from domestic problems and instead on conquest and glory gained by defeating barbarians. Great Britain was so far from civilization that Romans thought it doesn't exist at all. That changed when Julius Caesar tried to attempt twice and failed both times. The invasion in 43 AD was by the Emperor Claudius. He got weak control over the government and little political support in Rome. The reason he got was that if he succeeded, he would be better than Julius Caesar, and no one could doubt him, and the war would unite the Roman people against more barbarians. Roman troops landed somewhere in southwest England, and the Britons did not attack immediately, which let the Romans get a foothold on the island. The Britons had many different kingdoms and tribes who never worked together, and saw the Romans as an opportunity to gain an advantage over each other. After the first invasion, the Romans pushed northwards towards what was then a fortified village and what would become the British city of Colchester. The army surrounded the city, and Claudius himself, and apparently he was in the back of an elephant. After this triumphant victory, the Romans pressed onwards and eventually conquered most of what is now present England, and some of what is now Wales. Although that proved significantly more difficult to conquer than they thought. The Roman governor set up relations with some of the tribes, turning them into client states, who swore loyalty to the Romans and were able to keep much of their rights as independent tribes. Unfortunately, the new Roman governor went back on the promises the previous governor had made, which caused a lot of problems with one tribe in particular.
Rome went from being one of many city-states in the Italian peninsula to being the center of the most powerful empire in the world between the 5th century BCE and the 1st century CE. During the Republican period of Rome, political office and institutions were designed to prevent any one man from becoming too powerful. The system began to break down in the 1st century BCE. Rome was able to gain its empire in large part by extending some form of citizenship to many of these people it conquered. Military expansion drove economic development, bring Slavs people and loot back to Rome, which in turn transformed the city of Rome and Roman Republic. Okay, political institutions. How did Rome go from being one of many city-states in the Italian peninsula to being the center of the most powerful empire in the ancient world? Part of the answer lies in the political institution that Rome developed early in its history as Rome expanded its influence over more and more areas. Political institutions proved both resilient and adaptable, allowing it to incorporate diverse populations.